Crowds of demonstrators have gathered on the streets of London, protesting against the ban on the Palestine Action organization.
Yeah, he's been arrested.
Police say at least 365 people were arrested. Authorities said earlier threatened to detain anyone showing support for the group. Protesters were seen holding banners opposing genocide in Gaza and in support of Palestine Action. Earlier this week, 3 people were criminally charged with supporting the group. The Palestine Action Group was banned under terrorism laws after its activists broke into an airbase and sprayed 2 Royal Air Force planes with red paint. Police said the incident caused about £7 million worth of damage. Now, anyone convicted of supporting the group could face up to 14 years in prison. And let's discuss this with Ranjeet Brar, leader of the British Communist Party. Ranjeet, welcome to the program. It's always good to see you. We see hundreds of people taking to the streets in support of the Palestine Action Group. Why is there such a response from the British public?
Thanks, Igor. Good to be with you. The cause of Palestine is dear to the hearts of the British workers, despite the attempts of our ruling class and their Labour Party representatives to criminalise it. We do stand for the oppressed. We do care very deeply. And we, like the rest of the world, have been moved by seeing on our TV screens, on our social media screens, images that can't be censored of, we know hundreds of thousands have died. And now we are looking at, policy of starvation, genocide by starvation of the entire remaining population of Gaza, who at the beginning of this conflict were 2.3 million people. Perhaps as many as 300,000 or 400,000 have died. Our government is complicit in that, but the workers do not support the policy of the government, and they are fighting against it. And the dirty tactics used by our government in repressing the alleged free speech and right of protest that we cherish as a right. We're told Ursula von der Leyen was just seen, berating some protesters in Finland that they had the right of freedom, but if they were in Moscow, they'd be in jail in 2 minutes. Well, the reality is being exposed by the actual course of events.
But why do you think British authorities have been attacking, really, the Palestine Action Group and its supporters so much?
They have been, and they always seek to limit protest, to make it within safe bounds, and to really get rid of the people's enthusiasm for protest. So before the Iraq War, 2 million people probably demonstrated in the streets, but there was very little after effect when Tony Blair sent the bombers over their head and committed genocide in Iraq anyway. I think the people are, one, they're seeing the genocide unfold in front of their eyes, despite the fact that our media is heavily censored and sanitized. So their anger is not going away. The genocide is intensifying. And actually, people are saying that protest alone is not being successful. The PSC, the Palestine Solidarity Campaign, are kind of the official leadership, but really they're a leadership that weren't voted for by anyone. And they are very closely connected with the Labour Party, the ruling party, who themselves are implicit and complicit in this genocide, who are currently directing it on behalf of the British establishment. So, people are outraged by the genocide. The direct, non-violent, physical protest actions taken by Palestine Action are supported by a large number of people. Indeed, in the past, such actions have been deemed legal by courts with juries, precisely because they are breaches of the peace, minor acts of trespass and damage, which are aimed to stop the commissioning of a genocide, a far greater crime. That has broad resonance, and our government is desperately trying to close down that avenue of protest, and in that way keep a lid on the British working class and control their discontent and anger.
And with people seeing that continuing horrific violence in Gaza and the new plans by Israel to take over the enclave altogether, and people seeing these arrests in London, are we to expect an even greater split in British society over Palestine issues, do you think?
There is a split in British society over many issues, not just Palestine. Our working people are suffering the effects of the economic crisis and are being economically reduced and physically repressed all along the line. This is just one aspect of that discontent, but it's a very important one because Britain is an imperialist country. The whole wealth of the British imperial ruling elite depends on the exploitation and robbery, the plunder of the Middle East in particular and the wider world in general, other genocides, Congo, we can't list them all, but there are so many in which our British ruling class are complicit. That's how they secure their profits. They don't accept that to be challenged in official the discourse and narratives of mainstream political parties. That's why they are very good at controlling the opposition, and they do that principally and primarily through the Labour Party. That's beginning to fall apart now. And so, yes, there's increasing polarisation, there's increasing discontent. Our ruling class hope to take advantage of a certain amount of discord, polarising debate and setting workers, anti-immigrant workers versus pro-immigrant workers, all of these things. The reality is the enemy of the British working class is our ruling class. Those criminal class who are involved in NATO, in the oppression and exploitation of workers throughout the world. This is becoming more and more apparent to a wider section of British working class. We're going to see increasing drama unfolding on our streets.
And last month was the 20th anniversary of the notorious July 7th terrorist attack in 2005, in which suicide bombers killed dozens of people in London. Al-Qaeda was linked to that incident back then, and now, 2 decades later, Western officials have welcomed forces associated with Al-Qaeda to form the new government in Syria. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, this is an old history. So our British ruling class, via its secret agents and secret services, foments all kinds of terrorist acts around the world in order to further its own policy, up to and including the ultimate crime, the ultimate terrorist act of aggressive war against other countries to change the government, regime change operations, so-called destabilize operations, subversion operations. We've seen the Ariana Grande concert in Manchester being bombed, in the interim, and that was directly by a group, the Libyan Islamic Fighting Group, who officially are terrorist groups, but actually are used by our government to destabilize and overthrow the Libyan government so they could get their hands on their oil resources. So the two are linked. The British working class are suffering as a result of the exploitative policies, the terrorist actions of our own government. It is our government who is the terrorist actor, and they seek to indemnify themselves of criticism by labeling those who oppose their crimes themselves as terrorists. In so doing, they're making a massive attack on free speech, which a lot of workers in Britain take for granted they really have, and in that way they're opening the eyes, so they're lifting a rock to drop it on their own feet. Ultimately, they are widening the discord and opening their struggle with the British working class in general. And that's actually going to be a positive development because it's going to weaken ultimately the ability of our ruling class to commit these crimes around the world in our name.
Ranjeet Brar, leader of the British Communist Party, thank you so much for finding the time and speaking to us.
Thanks, Igor.